The world came back to Zachary Vincent in pieces. First the rough scratch of cotton against his skin, then the weight of blankets pressing down on his chest like stones, and finally, the blurred outline of a woman's face hovering above him like an angel descended from heaven itself. His throat burned as if he had swallowed hot coals, and every muscle in his body ached with a pain so profound he wondered if he had already crossed into the afterlife. The woman's cool hand pressed against his forehead, and he heard her voice, soft but commanding, speaking words he could not quite grasp through the fog of fever that still clung to his consciousness. "The fever has broken," she said, though not to him. "Thank God, the fever has finally broken." Zachary tried to speak, but his tongue felt thick and useless in his mouth. He managed only a rough sound somewhere between a groan and a word before darkness claimed him again, pulling him back under like the current of a river he had once nearly drowned in as a boy. When consciousness returned again, the light had changed. Softer now, golden and warm, streaming through a window he could not turn his head enough to see. The woman was there again, this time spooning something cool and wet between his cracked lips. Water. He had never tasted anything so sweet, so perfect, so utterly necessary for his continued existence on this earth. "Slowly," she cautioned, pulling the spoon back when he tried to gulp too quickly. "You will make yourself sick if you drink too fast after so many days without." Days. How many days had passed? Zachary's last clear memory was of riding hard across the valley floor outside Porterville, California, the July sun beating down on him without mercy as he pushed his horse toward town. He had felt wrong that morning, feverish and weak, but he had a job to finish, cattle to deliver to the stockyard. Then nothing. A blank space where memory should be, as empty as the desert sky. How long? He managed to rasp out, the words scraping against his throat like broken glass. The woman set down the spoon and reached for a cloth, dampening it in a basin he could not see. 8 days, she said quietly, pressing the cloth to his forehead with a gentleness that seemed almost sacred. "You have been with the fever for 8 days. The doctor said you would die." I told him he was wrong. 8 days. Zachary let that information settle over him, trying to comprehend it. 8 days lost. 8 days during which this stranger had apparently kept him alive through sheer force of will and whatever nursing skills she possessed. He forced his eyes to focus on her face, really seeing her for the first time. She was young, perhaps 25, with dark hair pulled back in a simple bun that could not quite contain several wayward curls. Her face was pale, suggesting long hours indoors away from the brutal California sun, and there were shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. But her eyes themselves were remarkable. A clear, luminous gray that reminded him of morning mist over the Sierra Nevada mountains. "Who are you?" he asked. "Lily Winters," she replied, wringing out the cloth and folding it precisely before setting it aside. "You collapsed in front of my house. Right off your horse and onto my front walk as if you had planned it. I could not very well leave you there to die in the street." "I am grateful," Zachary said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. "I am Zachary Vincent." "I know," Lily said, and something that might have been amusement flickered across her tired face. "You told me your name approximately 47 times over the past 8 days, among other things. You were quite talkative in your delirium." Heat that had nothing to do with fever crept up Zachary's neck. "What other things?" "You were very concerned about your horse," Lily said, standing and smoothing down her simple gray dress. "You also seemed to believe, at various points, that you were fighting off a band of outlaws, swimming across a river, and explaining to someone named Marcus why you could not possibly marry his sister. Your horse is fine, by the way. A very kind boy from the livery has been caring for him." I have been paying the boarding fees from the money in your saddlebag. I hope that was acceptable." Zachary felt relief wash over him at the news about his horse, a sturdy roan gelding named Chester who had been with him for 3 years and countless miles. As for Marcus and his sister, that was an old story from his time working a ranch up near Sacramento, when he was surprised his fever-addled brain had dredged up. "More than acceptable," he assured her. "I will pay you back every cent, Miss Winters, and more besides, for saving my life." Lily's expression shifted, becoming something harder to read. "I do not want your money, Mr. Vincent. I did what any decent person would do, though I will admit there were moments I doubted you would survive to thank me." Over the following days, Zachary's strength returned in small increments. Lily proved to be a patient but demanding nurse, insisting he drink water and thin broth even when he had no appetite, forcing him to take a few steps around the small bedroom even when his legs shook like a newborn calf's. The house, he learned, belonged to her alone. She had lived in Porterville for 2 years, having come west from Ohio after the death of her parents. "I wanted a new start," she explained one afternoon as she helped him walk from the bed to the chair by the window. "Somewhere I could be useful. I trained as a nurse before my mother took ill. In Porterville, there is enough need for someone with medical knowledge, even if I am not a proper doctor." "You seem plenty proper to me," Zachary said, sinking gratefully into the chair and looking out the window for the first time in over a week. The view showed a quiet street lined with modest houses, the Sierra Nevada rising in the hazy distance. "More than proper. You are extraordinary." Lily busied herself with straightening his bedsheets, not meeting his eyes. "You are still weak. The fever may have affected your judgment." But Zachary's judgment felt clearer than it had in years. As he regained his strength, he found himself watching Lily with increasing fascination. She moved through her routines with quiet efficiency, but there were moments when he caught glimpses of something else. The way she paused to look out the window at the mountains, longing written across her features. The gentle way she spoke to the neighbor's cat that sometimes wandered into the yard. The sad, distant expression that crossed her face when she thought no one was watching. By the end of the second week, Zachary was strong enough to dress himself and move around the house without assistance. He should have left, should have found a room at the boarding house and let Lily Winters return to her solitary life. Instead, he found excuses to stay. He repaired the loose board on her front steps. He fixed the hinge on her kitchen door that had been sticking. He chopped enough wood to see her through the coming winter, even though winter was still months away. Lily accepted his help with polite gratitude, but she maintained a careful distance, as if afraid to let him too close. It was not until a hot August evening, as they sat on her small front porch watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and gold, that Zachary finally understood why. "I was engaged once," Lily said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. "Back in Ohio. His name was Thomas. He was a good man, steady and kind. We were to be married in the spring." Zachary waited, sensing there was more, sensing this was important. "He took sick that winter," Lily continued, her voice steady but soft. "Pneumonia. I nursed him for weeks, did everything I knew how to do, everything the doctors suggested. It was not enough. He died 3 weeks before our wedding day." "I am sorry," Zachary said quietly. Lily nodded, still looking at the sunset rather than at him. "Afterward, I could not bear to stay. Everywhere I looked, I saw him, saw the life we would never have. So I came here, to a place where no one knew me, where no one would look at me with pity and whisper about poor Lily Winters who lost her intended. I thought I could start over, be useful, live a quiet life helping others." "And then I collapsed on your doorstep," Zachary said, beginning to understand. And then you collapsed on my doorstep, Lily agreed. And all I could think, as I dragged you inside and fought to bring down your fever, was that I could not let another person die. Not again. Not when I might be able to save them. She finally turned to look at him, and in the fading light, her gray eyes were luminous with unshed tears. I sat by your bed for 8 days, Zachary Vincent. I bathed you with cool water when the fever raged. I forced medicine past your lips. I prayed more than I have prayed since Thomas died, and when your fever finally broke, when I knew you would live, I felt something I thought I would never feel again. What did you feel? Zachary asked, though his heart already knew the answer. Hope, Lily whispered. Joy. And terrified, because I swore I would never let myself care for anyone again. It hurts too much when you lose them. Zachary reached across the small space between their chairs and took her hand. Her fingers were cool and slender in his, and he felt her tremble at the contact. You will not lose me, he said firmly. I am healthy now, thanks to you, strong. I plan to stick around for a very long time. You do not know that, Lily said, but she did not pull her hand away. None of us know how much time we have. No, Zachary agreed. But we can choose what we do with the time we are given. I could spend my life drifting from job to job, sleeping in bunkhouses and living like I have nothing to lose, because I have nothing worth keeping. Or I could stay here in Porterville and build something real with a woman who saved my life and somehow captured my heart in the process. Lily's breath caught. Zachary, I know it is fast, he said quickly. I know we have only truly known each other for 2 weeks. But I have spent the last 10 years wandering, Lily. Working ranches from Texas to Oregon, never staying anywhere long enough to call it home. The moment I woke up and saw your face, something changed. I cannot explain it better than that. I am afraid, Lily admitted, and a single tear spilled down her cheek. I am so afraid of losing someone again. Zachary stood and pulled her gently to her feet, taking both her hands in his. I am afraid too, he said honestly. I am afraid I am not good enough for you, that you deserve better than a drifting cowboy with more dust in his past than prospects in his future. But I am willing to try if you are. I am willing to stay, to build a life here, to be the kind of man worthy of what you have given me. For a long moment, Lily simply looked at him, searching his face for something. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, she said, Stay. That single word changed everything. Zachary found work at one of the larger ranches outside Porterville, a sprawling operation that ran cattle in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. The owner, a gruff man named William Blackwell, hired him on the spot after seeing him handle a fractious horse in the stockyard. The pay was decent, and the work was honest, and for the first time in his adult life, Zachary felt like he was building towards something rather than running from it. He took a room at the boarding house, not wanting to compromise Lily's reputation by staying at her home, but he visited her every evening. They fell into an easy routine. He would arrive as she was finishing her work for the day, often having tended to 1 or 2 patients who needed her nursing skills. They would cook dinner together in her small kitchen, talking about their days, sharing stories from their pasts, slowly weaving their separate lives into something that might become a shared future. Zachary learned that Lily loved reading, though books were precious and scarce in Porterville. He began saving his wages to buy her volumes whenever the supply wagon came through town. She treasured each one like gold, and the look on her face when he presented her with a new book made him feel richer than any cattle baron. Lily learned that Zachary had a gift for storytelling, spinning tales of his years on the trail that made her laugh until tears ran down her face. She also discovered that, beneath his easy humor and cowboy charm, was a man of surprising depth. someone who had seen hardship and loneliness, but had somehow emerged with his capacity for hope intact. As summer faded into autumn, painting the foothills in shades of amber and rust, their relationship deepened from cautious friendship into something more profound. The first time Zachary kissed her, it was on her front porch under a sky blazing with stars. He had been telling her about a particularly stubborn calf he had helped birth that day, and she had been laughing, her face alight with genuine joy, and he simply could not help himself any longer. He cupped her face in his work-roughened hands and kissed her softly, giving her every chance to pull away if she wanted. But Lily did not pull away. Instead, she leaned into him, her hands coming up to rest against his chest, and kissed him back with a passion that took his breath away. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, Lily touched her fingers to her lips in wonder. "I thought I would never feel this way again," she whispered. "Feel what way?" Zachary asked, though he knew wanted to hear her say it. "Alive," Lily said simply. "Fully, completely alive." In October, Zachary asked Lily to marry him. There was no grand gesture, no elaborate plan. They were walking along the creek that ran behind her property, enjoying the cool afternoon air and the sound of water over stones, when he simply stopped and turned to her. "Lily Winters," he said, taking both her hands in his. "I came to Porterville dying, and you brought me back to life. Not just my body, but everything I thought I had lost. You made me believe in home again, in building something lasting. Will you marry me?" Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling, radiant with happiness. "Yes," she said. "Yes, Zachary Vincent, I will marry you." They were wed in late November in the small church at the center of Porterville. Lily wore a simple dress of cream-colored silk that she had sewn herself, and Zachary wore his best suit, purchased new for the occasion. The congregation was small but warm, composed of the friends they had made in town and the ranchers and their families that Zachary worked with. William Blackwell stood as Zachary's witness, gruffly declaring that it was about time the young man settled down properly. Lily's witness was Emma Richardson, the wife of the general store owner, who had befriended Lily when she first arrived in Porterville and had been a steady presence of support and encouragement. As Zachary slipped the simple gold band onto Lily's finger, promising to love and cherish her for all the days of his life, he felt the weight of his wandering years lift from his shoulders. He was home. Finally, truly home. They spent their wedding night in Lily's house, which was now their house, and for the first time in 2 years, Lily did not feel the ghost of Thomas hovering in the corners. There was only Zachary, solid and real and alive, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. The winter of 1885 was mild by California standards, with rain instead of snow and cold nights that were easily defeated by a good fire and warm blankets. Zachary continued his work at the Blackwell Ranch, proving himself capable enough that William began talking about making him foreman when the current one retired in the spring. Lily continued her nursing work, though she was more selective now about which cases she took, wanting to spend her evenings with her husband rather than sitting up all night with the sick. They were building a life together, piece by piece, day by day. Zachary added a room onto the back of the house for when they might need more space. Lily planted a garden, determined to have fresh vegetables come summer. They adopted a dog, a rangy mutt that wandered into their yard one day and decided to stay, and Zachary named him Lucky, claiming that was exactly what they all were. In February, Lily missed her monthly courses. She said nothing at first, not wanting to raise hopes that might be dashed. But when a second month passed, and then she began feeling queasy in the mornings, she could no longer deny the truth. She was carrying Zachary's child. She told him on a Sunday afternoon, after church and a quiet lunch at home. They were sitting in the small addition he had built, which they had started calling the parlor, and Zachary was reading aloud from the new book he had bought her, a collection of poetry by Walt Whitman. "Zachary," Lily interrupted gently, "I have something to tell you." He looked up from the book, immediately attentive. "What is it? Are you feeling all right? You have been pale lately." "I am feeling perfectly fine," Lily assured him, reaching for his hand. "Better than fine, actually. Zachary, I am going to have a baby. We are going to have a baby." For a moment, Zachary simply stared at her, the book sliding forgotten from his lap. Then a grin spread across his face, so wide and genuine it made him look like a boy on Christmas morning. "A baby," he repeated, as if testing the word. "Lily, are you certain?" "As certain as I can be without a doctor's confirmation," she said, laughing at his expression. "All the signs are there. I should know. I have helped enough women through this." Zachary let out a whoop of joy and swept her into his arms, spinning her around until she was breathless with laughter and gently protesting that he would make her dizzy. He set her down carefully, immediately solicitous, his hands hovering as if unsure where to touch her. "Is this all right?" he asked anxiously. "Did I hurt you? Should you be resting? What do you need?" "I need you to breathe," Lily said, still laughing. "And to stop looking at me like I might shatter. I am pregnant, not made of glass. Women have been doing this since the dawn of time." But Zachary could not help his protectiveness. And as the months passed and Lily's belly swelled with their growing child, he became almost comically careful with her. He insisted she rest more, work less, let him handle all the heavy chores around the house. Lily tolerated his hovering with amused patience, knowing it came from a place of love and perhaps a touch of fear. They had both lost people they loved. The possibility of loss was a shadow neither could completely banish, but the pregnancy progressed smoothly. Lily remained healthy and strong, and as summer arrived, bringing with it the golden heat of the California valley, she bloomed like the roses in their garden. Zachary took the foreman position at the Blackwell Ranch, which came with a significant increase in wages and a promise of land if he stayed on for 5 years. Their future looked bright and secure in a way that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. In late August, on a sweltering afternoon when even the breeze seemed too tired to blow, Lily's labor began. Emma Richardson came to assist, along with the town's doctor, a competent man named Samuel Porter who had been impressed with Lily's nursing skills and grateful for her help during the previous winter's influenza outbreak. Zachary paced the front porch like a caged animal, listening to the sounds coming from the bedroom and feeling more helpless than he had ever felt in his life. This was worse than fever, worse than outlaws or stampedes or any of the dangers he had faced in his years on the trail. The woman he loved was in pain, and there was nothing he could do to help her. It was Emma who finally came to the door, wiping her hands on her apron and smiling. "You can come in now," she said. "You have a son." Zachary's legs nearly gave out beneath him as relief crashed over him like a wave. He stumbled into the bedroom, barely aware of Emma and Dr. Porter gathering their things and quietly leaving to give the new family privacy. Lily was propped up against the pillows, exhausted but radiant, her hair damp with sweat and her face glowing with a joy so profound it made Zachary's heart ache. In her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket, was a tiny red-faced infant with a shock of dark hair and eyes squeezed shut against the brightness of the world. "Zachary," Lily said softly, "meet your son." Zachary approached the bed slowly, almost reverently, and sank down beside her. Lily shifted the baby into his arms, and Zachary held his child for the first time, marveling at how something so small could feel so monumentally important. He is perfect, Zachary whispered, unable to look away from the tiny face. Lily, he is absolutely perfect. He has your nose, Lily observed with a tired smile. I hope he has your heart as well. What should we name him? Zachary asked, finally tearing his gaze away from the baby to look at his wife. Lily was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said, What about James? It was my father's name. James Thomas Vincent. The middle name, Zachary understood, was a gift to the memory of the man Lily had lost, an acknowledgement that the past had shaped her into the woman she had become but no longer held her captive. James Thomas Vincent, he repeated, testing the name. It is perfect. He is perfect. You are perfect. Lily laughed softly. I am a mess, but I am happy, so happy I can hardly believe it. Believe it, Zachary said, leaning over to kiss her forehead. This is real, all of it, our home, our son, our life together. This is everything I never knew I needed until I found you. The years that followed were full and rich, marked by the rhythms of ranch work and family life. James grew from infant to toddler, a bright, curious child who followed his father around like a shadow whenever Zachary was home. Lily returned to her nursing work once James was old enough, though she was selective about her cases, preferring to be home as much as possible. In 1888, they welcomed a daughter, Sarah, a placid baby who rarely cried and seemed content to observe the world with serious dark eyes. Zachary doted on her, proving that tough cowboys could indeed be wrapped around the tiny finger of a baby girl. Lily watched her husband with their children and fell in love with him all over again, seeing depths of gentleness and patience she had only glimpsed before. William Blackwell made good on his promise, and in 1890 he deeded over 200 acres of prime grazing land to Zachary, along with a small herd of cattle to start his own operation. It was both a reward for 5 years of loyal, excellent work and an investment in the future. William was getting old and had no children of his own. He saw in Zachary the son he had never had, and he wanted to ensure his legacy continued. Zachary and Lily built their own ranch slowly and carefully, never overextending, always planning for the future. They built a larger house on their land, a sturdy structure with a wide porch and room for their growing family. In 1893, another son arrived, Daniel, completing their family with a rambunctious energy that kept everyone on their toes. Through it all, through the hard work and the lean years and the occasional setbacks that were inevitable in ranching, Zachary and Lily's love deepened and matured. They had grown from two wounded people finding unexpected solace in each other to partners in every sense of the word, building a life and legacy together. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Zachary took Lily back to the creek behind what had been her small house in town, which they still owned and now rented to a young schoolteacher. It was autumn again, the season when they had first admitted their love, and the air was crisp with the promise of winter. You remember the first time we walked here? Zachary asked, holding her hand as they navigated the familiar path. When I asked you to marry me. Of course I remember, Lily said, smiling at the memory. I could not believe you wanted this life with me. I could not believe you said yes, Zachary countered. I was just a cowboy who had stumbled into your life by accident. It was not an accident, Lily said firmly. I have thought about that day many times over the years. You could have collapsed anywhere in Porterville, in front of the church or the general store or the saloon. But you collapsed in front of my house, at the exact moment I was outside tending my garden. If I had been inside, I might not have heard you fall. You might have died there in the street before anyone noticed. So you think it was fate? Zachary asked, amused. I think it was grace, Lily corrected. A second chance for both of us. You were dying and I was only half alive, trapped by grief and fear. We saved each other, Zachary, not just that first day but every day since." Zachary pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her and resting his chin on top of her head. "I love you, Lily Vincent," he said quietly. "More than I did 10 years ago, which I would not have thought possible. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." "We are the best thing that ever happened to each other," Lily corrected, tilting her head back to look at him. "And I love you just as much, more, always more." They stood there by the creek, holding each other as water tumbled over stones and leaves drifted down from the trees, and felt the weight of gratitude for everything they had built and become. The years continued to pass, each one adding its own joys and challenges to their story. James grew into a serious young man who loved the ranch and seemed destined to follow in his father's footsteps. Sarah developed a gift for healing like her mother, often accompanying Lily on her nursing calls and absorbing everything she could learn. Daniel was the wild one, the charmer, the one who could talk his way out of trouble as easily as he talked his way into it. Zachary's hair began to show threads of silver at his temples, and lines appeared around Lily's eyes from years of smiling. They wore their age comfortably, like old friends, and found new depths in their relationship as they moved from passionate youth into a mature love that had weathered storms and emerged stronger. In 1901, when James was 16 and already running a significant portion of the ranch operations, Zachary took a morning to ride up into the foothills, ostensibly to check on some cattle that had wandered into the higher pastures. But when he reached a particular ridge that offered a sweeping view of the valley below, he stopped and simply sat for a while, looking at everything he and Lily had built. Their ranch house was visible in the distance, smoke rising from the chimney where Lily was probably making breakfast. The barns and outbuildings were well maintained, the fences sturdy, the fields green with summer grass. He could see their cattle dotting the landscape, healthy and thriving. Beyond the ranch, Porterville itself was visible, grown larger over the years but still the same town where he had collapsed on a July day 16 years ago, more dead than alive. He thought about that man he had been, drifting and alone, convinced he would spend his life wandering. He thought about the fever that had nearly killed him, and the woman who had refused to let him die. He thought about every choice and chance that had brought him to this moment, sitting on a horse on a ridge overlooking a life he could not have imagined in his wildest dreams. "Thank you," Zachary said aloud, not sure if he was talking to God or fate or the universe itself. "Thank you for giving me this." When he rode back down to the house, Lily was waiting on the porch, shading her eyes against the morning sun to watch him approach. She knew without asking where he had been. She understood these moments when he needed to step back and appreciate everything they had, because she felt them too. "Good ride?" she asked as he dismounted and climbed the steps to join her. "The best," Zachary said, pulling her into his arms right there on the porch where anyone could see. "Every ride that brings me back to you is the best." Lily laughed and kissed him, still able to make his heart race after all these years. "You are getting sentimental in your old age." "I am not old," Zachary protested. "I am 38. Ancient," Lily teased, but her eyes were soft. "Come inside. Breakfast is ready, and your children are threatening to eat your share if you do not appear soon." They walked into the house together, hand in hand, and Zachary felt the same sense of contentment and rightness he felt every day. This was his life. The noise of his children arguing good-naturedly over the last piece of bacon, the smell of coffee and bread and home, the presence of the woman who had saved him in every way a person could be saved. As the years rolled on into the new century, Zachary and Lily watched their children grow into adults. James married a rancher's daughter from a neighboring spread and brought her to live on the ranch, where he and his father worked side by side, building the operation into one of the most respected in the county. Sarah went away to San Francisco to study nursing properly, returning with a certificate and a young doctor husband who opened a practice in Porterville. Daniel, true to his nature, tried several different paths before settling on law, articling with an attorney in Visalia and eventually opening his own practice. Zachary and Lily became grandparents, and then grandparents again, and then again, until the Christmas gatherings at the ranch house required extra tables and careful planning to accommodate everyone. They watched the world change around them. Automobiles began replacing horses. Electricity came to Porterville. The frontier mentality of the Old West gradually gave way to something more settled and civilized. Through it all, they remained each other's constant, the center around which everything else revolved. They grew old together gracefully, holding hands on the porch swing as they watched the sun set over the mountains, still finding new things to talk about after decades of conversation. On a warm spring evening in 1925, Zachary and Lily celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The ranch house was full to bursting with family, love, and laughter. James gave a toast that made his father's eyes suspiciously bright, speaking of the legacy of love and hard work that Zachary and Lily had built. "When my father was 22 years old," James said, raising his glass, "he was dying of fever with no one to care for him and no place to call home. When my mother was 23, she was alone and trapped by grief, convinced she would never love again. But somehow, through grace or luck or the mysterious workings of fate, they found each other. And from that meeting, all of this was born." He gestured around the crowded room. "Every person in this house exists because two wounded people chose to take a chance on each other, because they chose love over fear, hope over despair, building over running. To Zachary and Lily Vincent, thank you for showing us what real love looks like." The room erupted in cheers and applause, and Zachary pulled Lily close, kissing her temple as she wiped away happy tears. Later, when the celebration had wound down and most of the family had departed for their own homes, Zachary and Lily walked out to the porch to enjoy the quiet evening. The ranch was peaceful in the twilight, crickets chirping in the grass and a soft breeze carrying the scent of blooming jasmine. 40 years, Lily said wonderingly, leaning against Zachary's shoulder. "It feels like both a lifetime and no time at all." "Best 40 years of my life," Zachary said. "And I am looking forward to the next 40, Lily laughed. "We would be well over 100 years old. I do not think that is likely." "Then however many we have left," Zachary amended. "Every day with you is a gift, Lily, every single day." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Zachary thought about that ridge where he sometimes rode, looking down at everything they had built. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the fever that had nearly ended everything before it began, the angel-faced woman who had refused to let him go. "You ever think about that day?" he asked quietly. "The day I collapsed in front of your house." "All the time," Lily admitted. "I think about how close we came to missing each other entirely. If you had taken a different route through town, if I had been inside instead of in the garden, if I had not had the skills to nurse you through the fever, so many things that could have gone differently." "But they did not," Zachary said firmly. "We found each other, Lily. Against all odds, we found each other, and we built something beautiful." "We did," Lily agreed, taking his hand and lacing their fingers together in a gesture as natural as breathing after 4 decades of marriage. "We really did." They stayed on the porch until the moon rose full and bright, painting the ranch in silver light. Inside the house, they could hear the sounds of their granddaughter helping wash dishes, their grandson playing quietly with blocks in the parlor. The house would be full again tomorrow when more family arrived for the extended celebration. But tonight, in this moment, it was just the two of them, the way it had started. As they finally rose to go inside, Zachary paused and pulled Lily into his arms one more time. She came willingly, fitting against him like she always had, like she always would. "I love you, Lily Vincent," he said, the same words he had spoken 1,000 times before and would speak 1,000 times more. "Thank you for saving my life." "I love you too, Zachary Vincent," Lily replied, her voice steady and sure. "Thank you for saving mine." They walked into their home together, closing the door on the night and on a day of celebration, but opening themselves to whatever days remained. They had built a life of love and purpose from the ashes of fever and grief, had created a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. They had beaten death and despair and all the forces that might have kept them apart. And in the end, that was the greatest triumph of all. Not the ranch or the success or the family, though all of those things were precious. The greatest triumph was simply this: two broken people who had found wholeness in each other, who had chosen every day to keep choosing each other, who had proved that love was not just a feeling but a decision, an action, a commitment renewed with every sunrise. Years later, when they were both gone and their grandchildren were old enough to understand the full story, they would tell and retell the tale of Zachary and Lily Vincent. About the cowboy who collapsed on a stranger's doorstep, dying of fever. About the lonely nurse who pulled him back from death's door, despite the doctor's dire predictions. About how two wounded souls found healing in each other and built a love that lasted a lifetime and beyond. It became a family legend, passed down through generations, a reminder that sometimes the worst moments of our lives can lead to the best, that grace can find us when we least expect it, and that love, real enduring love, is always worth fighting for. The ranch still stood, run now by Zachary's great-great-grandchildren, a testament to everything he and Lily had built together. And on quiet evenings, when the wind blew just right across the California valley, those who listened carefully swore they could hear echoes of laughter from the old porch, where two people had sat and watched the sunset together for 40 years, their love growing deeper with each passing day. That love, that choice to build rather than run, to hope rather than despair, to open wounded hearts to the possibility of healing, that was Zachary and Lily's true legacy. Not land or money or success, but the simple, profound truth that love can save us if we are brave enough to let it in. And in the end, being brave enough to love was the greatest achievement of their lives. The thing that turned a chance meeting on a July day in 1885 into a story worth telling for generations to come. A story of how two people saved each other and built something beautiful from the ashes of everything they had lost.